Etienne Giroire spent a lifetime dreaming of sailing ever bigger and faster boats over the horizon. A naturalized American, he grew up in France, and like many of his peers, idolized French single-handers Eric Tabarly and Bernard Moitessier. Etienne spent his sailing career at the top of the sport in both cruising and racing, including sailing in the 1989 Whitbread and completing several single-handed ocean races. Those experiences inspired his current business, Etienne Inc., which produces the ubiquitous spinnaker sleeves that you see on many cruising and racing boats. I sat down with Etienne in his shop in Fort Lauderdale, where he told me the whole story, as only he can.
Since the last time we discussed, since I did on the podcast last, I always start by asking the guest to describe the setting. Now, obviously that works better with audio. We're in your shop, but if you want to just kind of start by describing the setting.
Well, you're the Etienne shop here. This is my shop. This is where we make the spinnaker sleeves. This is where we make the Etienne sailing products. The main product being the spinnaker sleeve, which explains the long table that we have here.
Yeah.
On those hoops, on lots of rope, on splicing, on sewing machines. And that's where we make the spinnaker sleeve. We made 27,000 spinnaker sleeves.
27,000?
Yeah, we putting a number on them, every one of them since the very beginning.
Really?
And that's where it's at. I mean, I've had that shop for 15 years.
In the same spot?
No, I bought this in 2003, I think.
Okay, all right.
I've been here.
I've also, because Mia just got her citizenship last week, and you've got the big American flag hanging in the back.
Yeah.
You're obviously not from around here, but you're American citizen. I remember before you saying that was very important to you, and I'm curious as to how, how did you wind up living in America, and how do you
I got here
identify
sailing.
yourself?
I'm a sailor. I'm a sailor by base. By the very beginning, I'm a sailor. So I got here on a sailboat, and eventually when I got here, I thought, wow, this is great. This is a great place. And I eventually decided to settle here. I became American in 1994.
Okay.
And so, as a matter of fact, I've lived in America longer than I ever lived in France. But somehow you can't get rid of your accent. But I feel very much an American, yes, sure.
Do you feel more American than French?
Both.
Is that even possible?
I think that's pretty much impossible.
Yeah.
I mean, we speak French at home.
Okay.
I enjoy very much the French lifestyle and the French habits and the traditions. But it's not all good. I mean, I like America. America has been good to me, and I very much feel like I'm part of it, yes.
When did you first
Very
get
much.
here?
1978, I think. 1979.
How so?
I was sailed here. I got here on a sailboat.
What was professionally for fun? Or?
Professionally, no.
Okay.
I was mate on some sailboat that eventually got to America from the West Indies for some work there. And the boat sat here for 6 months or so. But very quickly I found, without really looking, somebody found me because he wanted to buy himself a sailboat, but didn't know anything about sailboat.
How old were you at the time?
How old was I? I was 26, 27.
Okay, yeah.
And I ended up looking and finding him a boat for himself. The boat that I found was an 82-foot sloop, Abiking Rasmussen,
Wow.
1929.
Wow.
Burgess Morgan, a gorgeous boat. Still M boat. You get the J boat, you get the 12 meters, the 15 meters, the 23 meters. They call them in Europe. Mm-hmm. In America, they call them the J boats. And the 15 meters in Europe, in America, they call them the M boats. The boat's name was Formidable. M boat, gorgeous boat. I was skipper of that for 3.5 years.
So back up a second. You're
Yes,
26,
sorry.
right?
Yes.
How did some guy that can afford to buy an 82-foot boat like that, what was he trusting your opinion? No offense, but I mean, you were pretty young.
Why? Gee, 27.
Yeah. But how did you get to that point where you?
I was an expert at it. You could show me any kind of boats, and I was a nerd. I was a boat nerd.
Yeah.
Any kind of boat, and would say where it was built, design, length, mast height. I would know all about it. That obsessive behavior that
And
some people
had you
have.
always been like that as a kid?
Yeah, with cars, with motorcycles, with
Really?
boats.
What was your first sort of love, obsession, I guess?
Or maybe motorcycles, maybe.
Really?
Yeah,
Back in France?
yeah.
And did you own motorcycles? Did you just look at magazines? Or?
We just played with motorcycle.
Yeah.
Worked on them a lot. Alter them and change them and run with them.
And how did you wind up in sailing then? Was that something you that happened by accident, or did you specifically say, I'm doing this?
I did 3 years in the French Navy, from 18 years old to 21 years old, because I wanted to get out of the house, I wanted to travel, and I didn't want to be a burden to anyone. So I thought, and in France at that time, in the 70s, you had to do 1 year of military service by law.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, I'm going to do that, and then I'll see. But instead of just doing 1 year, which is usually just a waste, I said, okay, maybe I should look into, maybe I could do something, maybe it's a good deal.
As a career or just as something temporary?
As a big, why not as a career?
didn't know,
But in order to get a career, you have to do a minimum of 3 years.
Okay.
So that's what I did. And I did 3 years. It didn't teach me anything. It kind of taught me the disdain for authority, very much. But it showed me the sea, though. Because when you're a young sailor, when you're 18, 19 years old, and you get yourself on those destroyers or warships, you go out at sea anytime, any day. So, months like in early December or January, middle of the winter, in the Gulf of Biscay or in the Gulf of Lyon, in the Med, you do see some seas, some huge seas.
Yeah.
And it was just an eye-opening for me. Say, wow.
No, was it eye-opening in out of fear or respect?
Not
or?
out of fear, because when you are out at sea, you realize that a lot of anonymous people spend a lot of time at sea. Fishermen do, commercial ship do, military people do. So there's nothing really to fear as long as you're on a good boat. No, it just showed me something very unusual and I felt I was lucky to witness such majesty. I really was. Yeah, I was very impressed on the fact. But now there's something that hooks up to this. When you are of my generation, it's still the same case in France. It's still a case in France. In France, we are the heroes, sailors. We are the heroes, not the footballers, not the baseball players. Or, sailors are very much the heroes because of Eric Tabarly and because of all that past history of the French sailors. And also,
can you just, because I mean, I'm familiar with Tabarly and people that are really into sailing are, but I think most American sailors wouldn't necessarily know who that is.
Well, Eric Tabarly was also a French sailor. He was a young officer, and in 1964 he won the second Ostar, which is the transatlantic single-handed transatlantic race from Plymouth, England to Newport, Rhode Island.
That's evolved into the Transat Bakerly, I guess it's called now, which is happening as we speak.
Which is now finishing up right now, which has been happening every 4 years.
Yeah.
And if you're a sailor and you pay any attention to sailing, this is what you're being led to, because and this leads me to, what attracted me to sailing is sailing. You get on the boat, and then 2 weeks later they hear from you, wow, you reached the other side, or maybe you won, right? So it's very much like an effort that you do on your own, completely anonymously. There's nobody there to cheer you up. It's very much, there is no, it's being removed by all the spectacle and all the, it's just you, the boat, on the sea. So I thought that was very
ocean sailing specifically.
Yeah, deep ocean sailing. Yeah. That was very attractive.
Yeah.
Even run the buoy on America Cup. I think it's great. I think it's terrific. But I'd never had any attraction to it. The technical side of it is terrific. I love it.
Yeah.
But to be part of a team and both, I think it's wonderful.
Yeah.
But that's not where that's not really where I wanted to do.
So
to go.
When you went to the Navy, because you said everybody had to do some military service, was it always Navy? Was that like definite for you? You wanted to go see what the sea was like, or did you consider the Army?
No, it was happenstance. It was happenstance because I looked at what the Air Force had to offer, what the infantry had to offer, and I eventually went to the Navy because that's where I felt the most appealed to. And another bit too that the Navy offers you, or boating offers you, is that you've got the beyond horizon thing. That's very much that we know, the sailors, we know that because we're on boats, we steer the boat, and there's always beyond the horizon. And that's where we're going, beyond the horizon all the time. That any other sport doesn't really offer that.
Yeah.
It gives. And also, I'm sure you felt that, whenever you do the Whitbread or the type of sailing, you end up on places where you know that for centuries other sailors have been there doing the same thing, pushed by the same wind, on the same sea, with the same sunset, the same sunrise, the same clouds, the same birds, the same. You really feel that, wow, you're doing something here that human species has been doing for centuries.
What was your first experience at sea on a sailboat, aside from the Navy?
Well, the first big delivery was from France, south of France, in February, so in the winter.
Wow.
From the south of France to Greece on a 37-foot gin fizz, some plastic boat. Because this was the beginning of the of fleet chartering. So all the places like Corsica, like Greece, like Turkey, where there were no boats there at all. So this was also the very beginning of the French manufacturing of yachting, the plaisance, what we call in France, la plaisance. This was the very beginning of Beneteau, of Jeannot, Vauquier, and all those people.
What years are we talking? Like 70s, 80s?
77.
77, okay.
Yeah, this was the first delivery, so delivery all the way to Piraeus, to Greece, I remember. And when I got there, it was very easy to find boats, to find work on some of those boats which were waiting for the summer to go chartering in the islands. They were looking for people, for good sailors. So that's why I hooked into it. And that winter following that, I found a job on some boat that was going to the West Indies to go chartering. So there was always a demand on big boats to go sailing. And this was before roller furlers, and this was before self-tailing. And you always had a deadline to get there. So you learn sailing in a hurry there, very much in a hurry. Just 2 or 3 guys on the boat, get the boat there now.
Were these professional jobs at the time, or were you volunteering?
It was volunteering. I mean, they would take care of you, but there was no status. You know, skipper, you were called the skipper because you were the best guy on the boat type of thing. But there was no, you'd be paid cash, and you'd be flown around, if that.
Yeah.
No, there was very much the very beginning of it. There was no talk of insurance, none of that. It was just the best people for the boat, go.
What did your family and friends think when you went off? Or I guess people have a different attitude in France about deep ocean sailing, or was it a conflict for you?
Well, I think it was never a conflict.
Yeah.
My dad always, it was always, you have to go on, I'd never thought of becoming an accountant, for example. Or becoming, I don't know, some worker somewhere. No, never. It was always, when I was 18, it was always, go, you must.
And your parents encouraged that?
Well, now that I'm a dad and I see my kids at the same age, I really wonder what I got my parents going through because of me. But no, my dad never doubted. He always thought, well, he'll be just fine.
That's so cool.
Let him go.
Do you remember how you felt the first time you were on a big delivery like that? Now you're on a boat, a sailboat instead of a Navy boat going across the ocean. Do you remember what that felt like?
I think I thought, finally.
Yeah.
Something like that, yeah.
And how did that then evolve into? I mean, eventually you can't volunteer like that stuff forever. You had to work at some point. So
you become the skipper.
Okay.
When you become the skipper, then you should be paid for that because this became a more steady thing. For quite a while, my only ambition, I remember, is that I would get on some boat. We would get to Antigua, for example. Get to Antigua, and right away you look around, which one is the tallest mast? I want to get on that boat. Boats, and that was the way. And then at some point, say, wait, that one's good enough, or maybe that one's the tallest one. It was the case for me. Say, I'll stick on that one for a while. But even that gets old. 3 years later, I say, shit, I'm still doing the same thing. So that's when I met Mike Birch, because Mike Birch, who was one of the best known sailor in France, he won the Whitbread. At the time, had built the largest catamaran, Formula Tag, 82-foot cat, and he happened to sail by Fort Lauderdale. And when I saw that boat, I said, shit, that's the boat I got to get on. And I eventually got on that boat, and I went for a year and a half of racing around the Atlantic with it. And when I got back from sailing that type of boats, there was no mom in a hall anymore. But that was it.
That was it.
Even though I had offers, I remember, hey, looking for a job over here, this and that. Ooh,
Why? So this is kind of a digression.
So the technical side, I think, to answer your question, is that the technical side mattered to me a lot. I thought if I hitched myself onto the more sophisticated sailing that there was to be found at the time. Hey, this is where you want to be. This is what you want to do.
Because you've got knowledge then that's valuable? Because you're learning the cutting edge, is that what you mean?
Yeah, you learn the cutting edge. You learn you just follow your passion.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
disregarding the material side of it.
What were some of the downsides, down moments? I mean, I know from experience that this is not always, happy and fun, and it's challenging. You say it so easily that you see it and you do it, but that's not always.
I mean, that's part of being a man. I mean, otherwise you just sit at the bar and tell stories. No, I just thought this was neat. This was really, really neat. So
Yeah.
it's a little bit like, I mean, there's nothing more beautiful than a good, beautiful schooner, full sails up, reaching off on the, right? And say, wow, that's nice. Even a non-knowledgeable person is going to say, wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So he say, yep, we make it happen, the sailors,
How did you get involved in the Whitbread team?
I was sailing on 75-foot cat in where the Transat Beckerley finishes right now. In 1984, was it? 83? With Bruno Perron, one of the best French sailors that I've met during that year of sailing around the Atlantic. And Bruno was coming to America, so he said, hey, Etienne, I need crew. Yeah, coming. So there I go. And we spent the whole summer reaching up and down the Hudson River between the Statue of Liberty and batteries and stuff for 3 months. It was fantastic. And Bruno always had friends on the boat. And that's when I met Roger Nilsson. Roger Nilsson being the Swedish skipper. And Roger had a Whitbread campaign coming up with Magnus. And I told Roger, hey, Roger, I really want to do the Whitbread. Really, really want to do. And I did the Europe race too, 1987. Europe race 2 years later. Bruno called me in, so I did the Europe race. Roger was on the boat, and that's where Roger discovered the spinnaker sleeve. He'd never seen the spinnaker sleeve before. I said, yeah, we need those in the Whitbread. So that's how I found myself in the Whitbread, the Whitbread following, with 8 of my spinnaker sleeves on the boat.
And you invented that?
I perfected it. I didn't invent it from scratch.
Okay.
I perfected it. I made something that kind of worked into something that really worked.
Yeah.
And I started to make them, and very quickly I discovered, I kind of knew it, but I discovered that the sailmakers in America wanted that. They had to, because that was when I came back from racing, 1985, 1986. I didn't want to be a yacht skipper anymore. But I started to make spinnaker sleeves because I was working on some boats, some high budget, and those boats. This was the beginning of yachting. So you would find like 80-foot ketch, there were no 100-foot sailboats yet. 80-foot was the biggest boat then. And those boats would get the best gear, the first safe tailors, the first bar thrusters, the first hydraulic pumps, this and that, the best sails, but first roller furlers. But for the spinnakers, there was nothing at all. So I say, okay, I'll take care of that. And that's where I did my first spinnaker sleeves. And eventually, I'm up to 27,000 now. And I'm being copied from left and right.
Well, I think somebody asked this morning, we were talking about you, if you had a patent on it.
No. I could have, if I could have patented a couple of things in my spinnaker sleeve at the very beginning. But I didn't know I could, and I didn't know that in America it was a fairly simple thing to do. This being said, even if I had patented something 10 years ago, it would have gone into public domain. Because a patent is only 17 years. It depends on the product, but it's usually like 17 years. So no, I don't really have a patent on it. The same thing on my mass climbing chair. I don't have a patent on it. There, when I perfected the system, I looked for the patenting. I did that. But then I realized that, so it went to the budget, to the patenting office of Washington. I did it the proper way. And eventually, 9 months later, they sent me back the study saying, we can't really patent this because there are too many of those things around. Because there's one that exists for trees, tree trimming,
different industries.
For boat, mine happens to be for boat climbing. But that's not enough of a difference to patent.
Yeah.
So no, the answer is no, I don't have a patent. What saves my ass all these years, however, is my brand name, ATM.
Yeah, exactly.
Because a friend of mine, I remember when I first got here, no one could say my name right. No one. So one of them found, oh, Etienne sounds like a T, and an N. So I'm going to call you ATN now. Okay, great. So when it became the time to open my company, I said, okay, we call it the American Technique Navigation, ATN.
Okay, cool.
And I always pushed it. So now, even in France, they call it the ATN.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of saved my ass because people look for my product under that brand of ATN.
Sure.
So
I want to get back to some of the business stuff later, but I want to go back to the Whitbread because that always caught my imagination, growing up and stuff, and it must have yours as well. What edition of the race was that you were in?
89, 90.
What was that? The third, the fourth? Like, the Whitbread started?
No, the first one started in 73.
Yeah.
So may have been the eighth.
Okay,
one or
all right.
Something like this.
So that had captured your imagination previously.
It's just something. If you call yourself a sailor, you have to do Whitbread. Period.
Yeah.
Period.
Is it even possible to describe? I mean, I've crossed oceans, nothing like that. But is it even possible to describe what that was like, sailing on a big boat like that with a team going, balls to the walls as fast as you can? What is that like in the Southern Ocean?
I mean, it's great. It's terrific. Now, this being said, I already had the experience of being the skipper of 80-foot boats, on 75-foot boats, so there was nothing surprising for me on the big boats.
Sure.
But this being said, on the boat, we were 20 on the boat, 18 or 20 on the boat.
Wow.
A good 12 of them, the biggest boat they'd sailed on before was a 40-foot boat.
Really?
Well, 80-foot boats are not that common, really,
Yeah.
unless you are really
yeah.
in that world. So nothing really felt like out of the ordinary for me. But it was nice to go sailing, that the only job was to go fast and to go with the proper gear, with the big winches, on the big ropes, on the big sails, the high budgets. So
you had the budget for all the stuff you needed, yeah.
The only downside is that this was still the Whitbread sailed on those big old ketches, which were designed by IOR rules. Mm-hmm. So they were very bad surfers. It was very difficult to surf with them. It was possible to surf with them, but they wouldn't just surf like they do now. Mm-hmm. Now, as soon as you got 15 knots of wind now, those Volvo boats, they surf. Yeah. They plane. Yeah. Those boats would not. They would need a lot of boats. You would need to load the boat up, unload the boat up. So this would take a very good helmsman to keep the boat on the surf. And there was lots of loading around, lots of...
Scary stuff, huh?
Well, scary, no, because it's impressive.
Yeah.
You're on a boat that's been designed for that. Mm-hmm. You know that the boat's supposed to be unsinkable. Yeah. And even though there's that much water on deck once in a while, all across the deck, wow. That's what the boat's for. So no, I don't see that scary.
Did you guys wear life jackets or tethers or anything like they do now?
No.
Nothing?
No. Sometimes we might. I don't remember doing it. No.
And you broke your arm on that trip.
Yeah.
And I remember Mia and I were watching a documentary, because the boat was a Swedish boat,
yeah.
a Swedish documentary. And I didn't put two and two together until there's young Etienne cranking the sewing machine with his one good arm. And I was like, I know that. So how did that happen?
It happened on a brooch. Brooch in the 50s, in the Southern Seas. A brooch is when a boat lays on its side, downwind. A brooch is downwind, dead downwind. When the boat runs as fast as it can, pushed by the wind, but there's too much sails. A modern boat would plain surf on, just stay upright. Those boats were very, like I said earlier, boats were very, very difficult planers. You could get the thing planing and go, but most of the time, the boat would want to go, no, not quite, and then too much wind, paf, the boat would get on the side like this. First, the boat would start to oscillate like this. It would oscillate to windward, and then oscillate to windward. You would know that, holy shit, we're really going to be slammed on the other side there. And the boat go, splaff, but like this, 90 degrees. Jeez. With a boom in the water, spreaders in the water and stuff. And you asked for it, right? So we were like a week after the start, after Uruguay, after Punta del Este. So you get south and you go south and you get south and you reach south and you go past the 40s and you get in the 50s, the roaring 50s and the screaming 50s. It's called the screaming 50s because the wind, the screaming wind on the rigging all the time. It always blows. It's very tiring. Very anxiety, especially single-handed. Fully crewed, you're okay, but so you're in the screaming 50s, right? Which means you got 30, 35 knots of wind all the time. We're going one direction. So you got those huge seas being built up and built up, but you go with it. So that's good. Right? And as you go further south, the wind gets stronger. The sky gets grayer, gets cooler too, much colder. The seas get larger, and you have to keep on diminishing sails as the wind picks up. The wind keeps on, so you have to keep on downing the sails. So on a catch rig boat, you down the mizzen staysail, you reef the main, and you get the spinnakers, the smaller spinnaker, heavier and heavier and heavier. Because we had my spinnaker sleeve on the boat, I was always the one way up forward on the bow, working the spinnaker sleeve. Think about this, we are like 18 people on the boat, right? I'm the only one looking aft, because I'm the one way up on the bow, looking aft at everybody doing what they have to do. And I see the skipper, Roger. I see the skipper, steering the boat, and I see a big wave coming in. And I understand, oh shit, this one, we're gonna get really bad. But that happens all the time when you do the Whitbread.
Yeah.
Not anymore, but that happens all the time. If you don't do that, that means you're not pushing the boat hard enough. Because if you don't do that, then the other boats next to you, a few miles away from you, are doing it. And they're gaining a few miles on you. Mm-hmm. So you got to push the boat, that's the job. Okay, fine, let's push the boat. So the boat rolls to windward, right? And as it rolls to windward, the spinnaker pole digs in it. Paf. That was the mistake we made. We squared the spinnaker pole too early. Okay. Somebody squared the spinnaker pole too early. And then the boat goes on the other side like this, like paf, spreaders in the water, boom in the water, spreaders in the water. And I see that happening, say, okay. Now, this happens all the time. People expect it. So they stop whatever they do, they grab the lifeline, they grab the pulpit, they grab the shroud, grab the helm, grab something. Okay, and you wait for a few seconds until the boat shakes herself up and starts again. But when we did that, I was way up forward and I grab onto the staysail stay, or the baby stay. Between me and the baby stay, on the port side of the boat, is going the downhaul holding down the spinnaker pole. The fitting holding the spinnaker pole downhaul behind me on the bow, let's go, like this. The spinnaker pole gets up, is being released, gets up on the mast. The spinnaker pole downhaul whips itself straight, paf, and hits me here. I remember looking down, being up in the air, like this, whoa, yeah. So I let go, and I fall back on deck like this, paf, with half of my body in the water, right? Because the boat is being laid on the water. So I say, okay, I got to grab onto some things. I'm right-handed. I couldn't grab anything with my right hand, it wouldn't work because it was like this.
Jeez.
I grabbed something, whatever. A friend of mine, Nick, grabs me, with water up his boots up to here, as the boat rides right up. Now everybody gets very busy because you got the spinnaker pole going over the place, the spinnakers flagging this way, all kinds of things happening, so they forget me for a little bit. So I slide myself up, with my arm in here, up to the main mast. And afterwards I say, okay guys, nothing much I can do, please help me out here. And they look at me, they say, whoa, what, bobo here, you can't do much here. So they grabbed me, they laid me, once they understood how bad I was. Luckily, we were all dressed up because it was getting cold. Mm-hmm. So we had the old Helly Hansen things, with several coats and stuff. If this had happened in the West Indies, warmer climate, I would have had a huge gash in here.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty bad gash. But it was not open, luckily.
Yeah.
And I was so lucky, I could have got the thing between the legs too. Mm-hmm. So they grabbed me, get down on below. Roger Nielsen, the skipper, being a surgeon, say, whoa, I get to be a surgeon. So he got me some morphine, I remember, they cut the thing off. Unfortunately, this happened a week after the start on the longest leg of the Whitbread ever. We went through 11 time changes.
Wow.
From Uruguay to Perth.
Wow.
It's like going halfway around the world.
Yeah.
So for 3 weeks until we got there, all I could do was being radar watch, nothing much I could do. You can, and that's the bummer because on those boats, IOR design boats, big old ketches, the rudder is so huge because of the design flaws, you couldn't even steer. Say, okay, maybe I'll steer. I
Well, yeah, couldn't steer. Needed two hands.
No. Now you can steer on those, beautiful, light,
Yeah.
swift boats, but those big old ketches you could not. So when I got there, didn't get much time to celebrate, and I was whisked to the hospital and they fixed me up. So I got 2 plates in here with 18 screws of titanium. The titanium piece behind me broke, but they fixed me with titanium. So I got 2 plates in here, for the past 25 years now.
Wow. What was it like sailing with Magnus Olsen? Because he's
a lot of
one
fun.
of my
Magnus
heroes.
is great.
Yeah.
Magnus is an up guy, and he loves it. He loves being there. Big smile on him all the time. Magnus was great. So it was really nice to sail with all those Swedes, Finns, Swedes, Norwegian. A friend of mine, French guy, Jacques, was on the boat too. That was a lot of fun. Great, because everybody's there for the happiness of being there on the big boat. That was great.
How did you take that emotionally? I mean, that's got to be a pretty big disappointment.
Yeah, a huge disappointment, of course. Yeah, I was really bummed out. Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm lacking empathy or something. But
But how did you pick yourself up after that? Then what did you do next?
Well, I got back here. I got back in Florida and got my business going. Luckily, I could do any, I did lose some rotation a little bit, but that's about it.
So this is what I wanted to ask you. Like, was it a difficult transition for you to go from being a professional sailor at the top of the sport to running a business, or did you want to do that?
No, I think I always wanted to run my own business. Always. Being a sailor is great, and I've done some since. But no, I always wanted to tinker with things, make things work. That's always something I wanted to do all the time. So that fits me perfectly.
And then you built up the business, but did you keep sailing, or was it just business
I kept sailing,
yeah. Professionally?
Well, professionally, no, in the sense that professionally, if you're being paid of going sailing, once in a while I might have, but my main source of income was the shop, was the manufacturing, my loft. But I kept wanting to be part of it, because after the Whitbread, I found a trimaran, which was abandoned on some shipyard next to Newport. And I saw it being for sale, and I suddenly had I had no idea that was in me, but I had the urge of buying the thing. I discovered that I really, really wanted to buy myself a tribe, tribe. So and that's when I thought, well, okay, you want to do the Ostar, you want to do the Transat. That became an obsession. And I bought the boat and fixed it up, and then did the Ostar, which is now called the Transat, in 1992. Yeah.
And was that more successful?
That was, I'm a huge surprise. That was very successful because 40-foot, 1992 was the moment for a 40-foot boat. You didn't have to spend a huge amount of money in safety equipment, in radar or engines or Argos. You didn't have to do that. You could enter that type of racing on the chip, very much on the chip. And also it was single-handed, so I didn't have to have any entourage and I could fix. I made my own sails from A to Z.
Really?
I fixed the boat up, all of it. Just me and my friend Walter Green up in Maine. I got to give that to Walter Green, who's a great yachtsman, designer, and boat builder. And he's done the Ostar quite a few times, Walter too. One of the few Americans who've done that. So I just shut down the shop, I remember, in April 1992, shut down the shop and sailed across to England, to Plymouth, by myself. I went to Bermuda, stayed there for 3 days. I had water up to the ankles in the boat. So I had to fix that up. And then I sailed from Bermuda to Plymouth for the start of the race. I got there on a Tuesday. The race is that Sunday.
Oh my gosh.
I was missing a bar, I remember. One of the bars had broken off, a piece of foam. And I had water up to the ankles in the main hull. So we had to fix that up really, really quickly before the 1992 race. And who got my lines on the dock in Plymouth is Mike Birch.
Wow.
Mike Birch being the skipper of Formula Tag, who
Yeah.
I discovered when I got there was also skippering a 40-foot boat on night class in the hostel. I said, shit, what am I going to do now? Anyway. So I was very busy for 3 or 4 days, of course. Me and friends on the dock. It was
Yeah.
a wonderful time. I remember it was a terrific time of 3 or 4 days of being very busy and very focused. On Sunday morning, off we go, off I go. But again, this was the time before Argos. This was the time before cellular, before phones. So you couldn't call home every day. So on a smaller boat, you would be out there, not knowing where anyone was. All you know, I'm going over there. And when I got there, Billy was the first guy at the finish to see me. I got there, 16 days, 6 hours, 45 minutes.
Wow.
I still
How many
had,
miles?
3,000 miles, the Ostar. I still have that record on that trial.
Really?
I still have that record on 40 foot, class 4. And I got there 18 hours before Mike Birch. I got there, I was the 7th boat across the line. Ahead of me were only 60 footers, only. So that was great. So that really worked well.
Yeah, there you go, you got the payoff. Do you prefer, when it comes to racing, do you prefer single-handed sailing?
Yeah, I like single-handed a lot, yeah.
Why
It gets
is,
boring though, but
It gets
I like
boring.
it a lot, yeah.
Why is that such a French thing?
Maybe because, it's a very good question. It has to do maybe with the French mood, with the French, maybe we see it as more difficult, and that appeals to us, I don't know, to me. Because single-handed, you have to be the ultimate sailor. You have to be a good navigator, you have to be the good bosun, you have to be the good skipper, you have to do it all. You have to think ahead, way ahead, and plus you don't take no shit from nobody, it's you. So, no. Plus, what's very pleasant, I'm sure you felt that, when you're on a boat that you like, that you enjoy, that you conceive, that you sailed on, the boat becomes an extension of yourself. And, I remember when I owned that 65-foot trimaran, Spirit of Lauderdale, Fort Lauderdale, I remember walking on the thing and saying, why did I buy that thing? The thing was 55 feet wide, 65 feet long, 90 feet tall. And then it dawned on me, yeah, the size of the toy. And I think that's about it, really, the size of the toy. A 40-foot boat, that boat was perfect, really was. Now, why single-handed? I mean, I enjoy sailing with good guys, with people who enjoy it as much as I do. But I think it's more of a challenge, period. Plus, it's got that French varnish to it, the great. I know that being a French sailor is something that kids look up to.
Yeah. Who did you look up to?
Well, Tabarly was certainly a great guy. But the technical side of it really appealed to me a lot. So the designers too, people who could design things. I mean, even the Herreshoff, Sparkman Stevens, Herreshoff, Nigel Irons, Walter Green, Phil Weld, a few Americans who've done that, quite a bit of it. I thought those were great examples, great mentors, great example of a life to live.
Do you keep up with the sport now, like with the Volvo and the modern boats and the Vendée and stuff? Do you follow
I do.
it?
I supply those guys, yeah. I cater to those people, yeah.
Do you like being involved still? I mean, is
Yeah,
that important?
very much, yeah. I draw lots of pride out of it, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, it's so cool. Just in the shop
Yeah.
here, you got posters of all these famous boats with
Yeah.
signatures on them. It's
Yeah.
just super cool. Have you gotten to sail on some of the the big time boats that are out there now?
Yeah, a lot less now because I'm kind of stuck at the shop.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I sailed with Francis Joyon, I sailed with Mike Birch, I sailed with Bruno Perron, I sailed, it's a very small world. Really.
Yeah.
I mean, that world has gotten a lot bigger the past couple of generations because every French kids want to become a sailor. And so there's the new generation, there are a lot more sailors in France. But that older generation, which I'm part of, there are not that many of them around, really. Not that many. I mean, maybe 50 when you think about it.
Yeah.
That's about it. It's great.
I asked Pam this the other day, and I think about this because I'm in a non-traditional career with sailing, and you've done, a very non-traditional career. But do you think about retirement?
But that would be great, yeah.
But how does that work for someone like you? Does it work? Are
Well,
you able to retire?
You have to define retirement. Retirement.
Yeah.
I think I will always think around on boats. I will always play around on boats. I enjoy having a shop.
Yeah.
I enjoy coming to the shop and make things. I wish we were on a growing sport. I wish I'm happy with what I do, but I wish sailing that there was as much business to do in sailing as there is in fishing, for example.
Yeah.
If I'd invented something in fishing, if fishing had been my passion, I'm sure I would be closer to retirement than I am now, because there are more fishermen out there than sailors.
Yeah.
But no, I think sailing keeps you young. I thought, very early on, I thought sailing is great. Sailing is green. Sailing allows you to. You asked me earlier, why did I get into sailing? Sailing was about the cheapest way to discover the world. Yeah. It certainly beats going hitchhiking on the side of the road. When you go sailing, you go on boats. That was a mean of traveling. Then the technical side of it, I hooked onto the technical side of it as a passion, and eventually as a job, as a profession. But originally, it was a mean of traveling.
Etienne, the company, literally was named after you, basically.
Yeah.
How much of it is you? Like, is this going to exist after you decide you're done with it?
Well, I hope my brand is worth something. I wonder sometime. I don't know. I've never really looked into selling the business. I'd love to have one of my sons keeping up at this. They don't seem to go that route. But on this never cease to amaze me is that every day, every week, I've got professional sailmakers calling me wanting to buy my gear for their customers. So I do have a routine. I do have a commerce. I definitely do. I have fond commerce, we say in France, meaning I have a routine. I have, which I have created. So it is worth something. Now, is it sellable to anyone? But the man would have to be a sailor. The man would have to, be part of the sailing like I am. But yes, it's worth something. It's up to me to make it more valuable, find new products. Yeah.
So Etienne, you're a fantastic storyteller. What am I not asking you that I should be asking you?
My God. Well, my last big story was with that boat there.
Yeah, the Route du Rhum.
The Route du Rhum, yeah.
You sort of came out of retirement to do that.
No, don't say retirement, man.
Well, professional sailing.
I'm 62, which is the new 40.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Old sailors are great sailors. Mike Birch and Phil Weld won the Transat. Phil Weld in 1984. He was 67 years old on Moxie. Sailing fits. That's why sailing is great too, because sailing, you don't have to be young and strong. You have to be strong, of course. You have to be. But look at François Gabard, for example, who just won the Transat on his 100-foot massif. François is a little guy.
Yeah, it's insane. That boggles
He's a
my
little
mind.
guy. The guy is 5'8", and he's, Francis Joyon is a huge, massive-looking dude. But you don't need to be. Florence Artaud. Florence was very feminine. She was not a huge, masculine-looking girl. No. So sailing fits that. Sailing could be done by women, by men. You don't have to be very strong. You have to be smart. You have to be quick. You have to be, technical-minded type of thing. You have to have lots of intuition, lots of feelings. So sailing is great. That's really why I thought I will always have a job, because sailing, I can cater to young guys and I can cater to old people. I can cater to the women and I can cater to the men as well. Again, I wish we had a better society, the American society, that would give more free time to us Americans for them to go sailing. Hopefully we'll get there, but.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for the time, Etienne.
Right.
This has been super fun as usual, and I'm excited. I want you to show me around the shop then, if you can.